to be receiving all this conflicting pressure from medical staff and your body to not do it, and then being pressured by your partner to do it. It felt like I didn't even have a choice. It really felt like I wasn't even allowed to consider what would happen if I didn't.
You see how she makes this switch, this bait and switch, very quickly.
And he would say, like, no, it's not even a question. You're gonna ruin my life if you do that. That would be the worst thing to ever happen to me. But as along the lines of things that he would say. And at one point, he even said that he would break up with me.
Of course he would. He's gonna break up with you. No shit. Because you agreed upon having an abortion if you got pregnant. How is that surprising?
You know, we did talk about this a lot. I didn't say that we shouldn't talk about it, but at the same time, I recognized that some of the language that I was using was not the most conducive to a very team-oriented approach of like, what do we do here? I was just really afraid what to do, and we just weren't ready for the situation. And I think that sometimes I just said some stupid stuff. After we broke up, I mean,
Again, this is why I really like Gus in this conversation. He, again, is being very charitable to the situation and acknowledges his shortcomings, but also acknowledges, you know, the role she played and what she was, you know, going through at the time. Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's Playmore69, aka Michael here, and this is the All in All Podcast, episode 28, and we are going to be reacting to some drama in this episode. This will be the Gus Johnson situation breakdown, and basically this whole podcast idea really sprang from when Pay Money Wubby actually uploaded a video where it was with Gus Johnson on his stream. It was basically just Gus Johnson called into his stream and talked about the drama that kind of happened years ago, and obviously his now ex-girlfriend made a video about, I think it was 5-6 months ago, October 22nd, right here. And you know, I heard about this drama months ago. I did watch the video, but again, this was 6 months ago, so I hardly remember it. And basically Gus goes on Pay Money Wubby's stream and actually tries to clear some things up. And when I first watched the ectopic pregnancy video, even 6 months ago, I was very skeptical, because even in the video, she didn't really sound ideal. But now I'm here, and I think we have both sides, and I've wanted to cover this for a while. I actually thought about covering this situation like on episode 3 of the podcast, like way back when. But now that we have a full response from Gus Johnson, he has a conversation with Wubby, which is about, like, you know, 25 minutes long, and then we have this video, which is 23 minutes long. I will be 1.5 speed or time speed each one of these videos, just to make them go by fast, because again, it is just talking, and I normally am a fast talking person, so 1.5 times speed kind of like matches my talking speed when it comes to these like sort of reaction videos. And I won't be doing any sort of gameplay in the background, obviously, because I actually want to engage with every point of these videos. So yeah, let's just get right into it. Starting with the pregnancy video first.
Oh, hello. On this very day, a certain number of years ago, I was in the hospital dying. It was the worst experience of my entire life, and I don't recommend it. 10 out of 10, don't recommend, not even with rice. And I was alone for most of it. But little by little, as I did open up to some friends, I ended up finding that similar stuff like this happens. I don't even know where to go from here.
This is what I really hate about these videos. I know I'm only pausing 40 seconds in, but you know, this is 1.5 times speed, and she's already pausing. Like, if you're doing an edited video, you know, this is a YouTuber tip for from a YouTuber who's been doing YouTube since, you know, 2008. If you're doing an edited video like this one, you should probably cut out your pauses, right? You know, because there's actually a lot of editing in this video she does, and she doesn't cut out the pauses, and that's for the emotional appeal here. So you'll catch on to that a lot. And remember, this isn't 1.5 times speed, so when you see a pause, it's really a lot longer than you might perceive in this video.
Let me just backtrack and show you guys how I got there. So years ago, I found out that I was pregnant. and I did not want to be. I was not ready for that. And as soon as I confirmed it at home, I made a doctor's appointment and I went immediately just to get a second confirmation.
Remember all this she is saying right here, that she got pregnant, she didn't want to be pregnant. Just remember this. This is, again, we're 1 minute into the video.
And just find out where to go from there. I had Kaiser Permanente at the time. They suck. First of all, Kaiser, you suck. I'm so happy I'm not with you anymore. But even though we're in California, you know, the bluest state probably in the whole country, you still have to go through quite a few hoops to terminate a pregnancy. And it's scary. And even at the first doctor's appointment, I think it didn't fully set in what was happening. They had to refer me out to Planned Parenthood because Kaiser Permanente refused to do it, which is wild. So they referred me out to Planned Parenthood. I, made the appointment there. I went, and they couldn't see anything, which was weird because I was certainly far enough along for something to be seen, and they couldn't see anything. So they thought, well, maybe you're not as far along as we thought. Come back in 2 weeks or something, which, when you're trying to not be pregnant anymore is not what you want to hear at all, especially when most of the medical workers that you've been interacting with have been telling you things like, are you sure you want to do this? You have to be 100% sure. If you're even 99% sure, we're not going to let you do this. So it sticks with you a little bit. I always knew that I had to end it, but it's just harder when you're getting a lot of opposing pressure to not do it from medical staff and honestly your own body. It's so weird. Like once you get those hormones in your body, there's like this instinct that kicks in that makes you want to protect it, even though your brain is like, no, we're not ready for this. This was always the plan. If this happened, you promised your boyfriend that we would do this. So it was really scary.
Okay, so again, 3 minutes into the video, I want to kind of paint the picture here just a little bit so we keep it in our heads, to where as this video goes on, she's going to spin it on her boyfriend, Gus. And basically she said so far it's the incompetent doctors and medical staff she has dealt with that, hey, she wants to get it terminated, but again, they are being very hesitant about it, and they're also apparently not being thorough enough to even detect a baby is in her. So again, she's painting that picture. So watch how this turns into now Gus Johnson is the #1 enemy, aka her boyfriend at the time.
To be receiving all this conflicting pressure from medical staff and your body to not do it, and then being pressured by your partner to do it. It felt like I didn't even have a choice. It really felt like I wasn't even allowed to consider what would happen if I didn't.
You see how she makes this switch, this bait and switch, very quickly. It's so incredibly quickly too, and she also follows it up with this long pause here.
Over and over.
But you can see that she went from the first 3 minutes explaining that, hey, she wants to get an abortion, there is, the medical staff is basically she's dealing with, and then she gets to just past the 3 minute mark, and then she, kind of brings up that little vagueness point of like, what if I didn't get an abortion? And then immediately she went to the pressure on her boyfriend. It was such a clean bait and switch, and it's one that I don't think many people saw in this video, to where the first 3 minutes, nothing bad about her boyfriend, but then she was able to switch it incredibly fast, and now you're able to see this snowball just go on and on and on.
I mean, look at my appointments. This was always what I was going to do. I was constantly taking the steps to end the pregnancy. But it's really scary when somebody's forcing you to do it.
Crying for
and
emotional
I did have
appeal.
moments of weakness where I would cry and say things like, okay, but honestly, like, can we just consider, like, what if we didn't do it? Still gonna do it, but can we just consider what would happen if I didn't?
Again, this is what I don't understand. This so fast bait and switch. I'm sorry I'm pausing so much, but she made the agreement with her boyfriend. If she was to get pregnant, she would get an abortion, but now she's asking him to think about these thought experiments as like, oh, well, what if I didn't do it? Like, what if we just consider that real quick? It's like, no, that's not what we talked about. That's not what we agreed upon. And all of a sudden now, of course, the reason this is so appealing in the video is because you can see right here, she's crying. She's emotional in the video, meaning that she could basically say whatever here, like, hey, I posed these thought experiments to my boyfriend of like, oh, what if I didn't get the abortion? And of course, she could be emotional in the video and then just have that come off as favorable to her side, which it shouldn't be in any case. But again, it's so odd, the bait and switch here, and we're only 4 minutes into this video, so I need to stop pausing.
And he would say like, no, it's not even a question. You're going to ruin my life if you do that. That would be the worst thing to ever happen to me. Along the lines of things that he would say. And at one point, he even said that he would break up with me.
Of course he would. He's gonna break up with you. No shit. Because you agreed upon having an abortion if you got pregnant. How is that surprising?
He didn't do it. And that he would resent me and the potential child. And that's really stuck with me. Because then at that point, and mind you, I haven't told anybody. I think I told one single friend. Couldn't tell my family. I couldn't talk to anybody. It was just really scary. And so at that point, it's like, well, if you're making threats like that, why should I consider you in this decision at all? And so I did start to think a little bit more. Should I actually end it? And it's true. That was me reneging. Because I feel like when you start a relationship, you have the conversation of, hey, if you get pregnant, what's the plan? And of course, it's so easy to say like, oh yeah, absolutely, I'm not ready to be a parent yet. No, not anytime soon. But God, it's so much scarier when it's happening to you in real life. So that was
It's just so weird that she can have this sort of crying effect and she can say whatever she wants, even though she acknowledges that she's reneging at that time. But yet she can do that in this video and say whatever she wants, and as long as she's emotional in that, she could spin it in her, favor. And that's just what I see in this video time and time again. I've seen this video before. Obviously, this was 5-6 months ago, but even watching it back, it infuriates me so much of this very easy bait and switch of saying something. Obviously, she was in the wrong here. Of they agreed upon something, she's the one not going through with it, but yet she could spin it in her favor in this video. So again, that's just what I see.
It was really hard. And then I just kept having pain and bleeding, and nobody took me seriously. And then one morning, I woke up at about 4 a.m. to the most intense pain I've ever felt in my life in my lower left abdomen. And it was so sharp and painful. I went to the bathroom because, all of a sudden I'm bleeding a lot, which can't be normal. And I couldn't even stand up because the pain was just so intense. I went to the doctor multiple times. And one of the first times I went, the lady was just like, well, just take some Tylenol and go home. What do you want me to do? And then I went again later that day because I was still having so much pain. And they said, oh, you're probably miscarrying. Go bleed it out at home. And then over the course of the next few days, I'm just taking medicine to manage the pain, which is constant, and I'm still bleeding a lot. My appetite is weird. Even eating something as small as a grape caused so much pain, so I wasn't really eating. But my stomach was growing a lot. For the span of a few days, my stomach probably expanded from here to here. And it didn't make sense. And I would call the advice nurse, and they would say, oh, you're probably gassy. And so, I did take things like Gas X and stuff, and I'm like, I don't think this is helping, and I'm still in a lot of pain. And you know what? It's just so frustrating too, because I know at multiple visits I did request imaging, and I never got it. Like, not like the imaging where like they go on top of the tummy, because that's not in depth. Like, I asked for like more intensive imaging, like where they actually go in, and they wouldn't do it. And I really wish that they would have.
So again, everything she explained there, I again in this video am not trying to downplay her traumatic experience with the ectopic pregnancy. The only thing I'm being very critical about is her boyfriend in this situation, because she's painting him the picture of it was all his fault, that he was so bad, he was abusive, he did all these things to me. But in reality, the portion of this video where she was really wronged was because of the medical staff. Everything she said there about she's bleeding, she went to the doctor, they told her this, they told her go bleed it out at home, they told her, it's nothing, crazy, you don't need imaging, whatever. Everything like that is all the medical staff. It's nothing to do with her boyfriend. And that's what I really take out of this drama is it really didn't have much to do with her boyfriend. I don't even know why she really included him in here and kept painting him in the bad light that she did. But anyways, let's just continue.
I was at work and, trying to suck it up. And then all of a sudden, the weirdest painful sensation came over me again. But this time, it made me really dizzy and faint, and my heart was just racing, and I had this pain in my lower abdomen. I just knew something was wrong. And so I left work early. I called my boyfriend, and I told him something's wrong. I'm going to the hospital again. I don't feel well. Something is wrong. And he said, okay, well, I have work to do, and it involves other people, and then we're going to go out and get dinner and drinks with them.
Gus explains this in the Wubby video that we will watch, the stream highlight. So I'm not really going to go over this, but he explains that. He covers it.
So I had to go to the hospital alone. And I was there for about 4 hours by myself. Most of it in the waiting room. Just feeling like I'm dying the whole time. And finally they call me back and they do tests and imaging, and I still remember when they took me down to radiology to do my ultrasound. Finally, I'm getting the in-depth ultrasound. And if you guys know anything about ultrasounds, you know that the techs are not allowed to tell you your diagnosis at all. You have to hear it from a doctor. And so I'm laying there, and I still remember it perfectly. The ultrasound tech is in there, and she seems confused by something. So she gets another tech's input. I don't know if it's like her manager or just another person. And then the other tech goes, yeah, that's her uterus. And then the original tech says, no, that's her uterus. And I'm just laying there like, what are you talking about? What's happening? And they wouldn't tell me anything, of course, because that's part of, their job. Like they can't, just in case they're wrong, they need a doctor to look at it. So finally they sent me back upstairs, and I'm still alone, and my phone is dying. I'm hoping that my boyfriend can come as soon as he can. And I decide, because I parked at like a high up level, I'm like, well, since it's nighttime now, I don't want to have to take an elevator or stairs because I won't feel safe. I'm gonna move my car to the first level now that it's starting to clear up. And I get in my car, and I didn't put my seatbelt on. I was in a parking garage. I was going like 5 miles an hour. And something about the beep of the seatbelt that needed to be clicked was just so ominous and foreshadowing. It sounded like a heart monitor. I just knew there was something wrong. I just knew it. Parked my car, got my...
That was so overdramatic, and I still remember it just in the video that I watched. It was, oh my gosh, like, it was up till this point of the video, like when I first watched it, was like, really, do you have to include that dramatic scene, but you can't cut out your obvious, long pauses and crying for emotional effect? It was like you were able to mix audio and then uptick it for just that section of the video just to dramatize it even more, because that's really what this video is. It's a massive dramatization of her situation to play it up. And again, I'm not trying to downplay the ectopic pregnancy. I'm really just trying to be critical of with her, and obviously her critiques of her boyfriend, because obviously he was able to explain a lot of things she said, and she's painting him any way she can in this bad light, because obviously, like, even with the whole hospital thing, like, he wasn't there at the start, is because, yeah, he truly was busy, but yet, she's brought it up multiple times now. Whatever, let's just continue.
My charger went inside, charged my phone. Finally, it seems like boyfriend is on his way, so that's nice. And he comes right in time to get the diagnosis. I had an ectopic pregnancy in my left fallopian tube. It ruptured. I've been bleeding internally ever since. They were surprised I wasn't dead, and that if I don't have surgery right then and there, I was going to die for sure. And as an added bonus, the surgery might not go well, and I might die during that too. So here, sign these waivers and paperwork, because you don't have a choice anymore. Just really felt like my body, my choice never got to even apply to me.
Again, I'm not trying to downplay her situation, but it's like certain pauses in these videos like this, these are just to make it dramatized. That's all it's doing. So, I mean, these are deliberately kept in the video for some reason. Again, not trying to downplay it, but I'm trying to help paint the picture here.
And that part really sucked. So, yeah, for those of you who are wondering, in my nose video that I recently uploaded about when I talked about the traumatic OR experience that I had, there it is, a month ago for my nose. I was in a totally safe environment, safe OR. The PTSD, I just had a moment. I felt like I was back in that first Kaiser Permanente OR all over again, and I burst into tears and had a panic attack, and yeah, it's really affected me ever since. Anyway, the surgery ended up starting at like 10 or 11. It ended around 1 a.m. or 2 a.m., something like that. I barely remember coming out of it. I think I remember asking Dr. Friend, which is funny that the on-call surgeon was named Dr. Friend. She was very, very kind about it. But they went in there with a little laparoscopic surgery, and they made 2 incisions right here on my lower abdomen, and they also went in through my belly button. Yeah, my entire left fallopian tube exploded, so I don't have that anymore. She was able to save my ovaries, so that's nice. They're just kind of like stuck onto the actual uterus, so I still have them for like hormone purposes. I can't use them. So there go half my ovaries. And now I'm at a higher risk of having this happen to me again if I ever become pregnant again. You know, they say, oh yeah, people have ectopic pregnancies and they end up having children later. But I don't read a lot about what happens like if you have like an ectopic rupture. That's what I'm a little scared of. Anyway, so surgery finished, and I didn't even consent to this because clearly like I was under like general anesthesia and barely waking up. I did not consent to being kicked out at 3 a.m., but they did. They wheeled me out, and I couldn't even really stand up all that well by myself. I was extremely nauseous, and it was awful. And a boyfriend drove me back to his place because I still didn't get to tell anybody right before surgery. Just in case it did go wrong, I called my mom and I lied and I said it was an ovarian cyst. It's not a big deal, but I just want to let you know what hospital I'm at. Don't come, because I don't want anybody to find out. Don't come. But yeah, I didn't really tell her how severe it was. I remember even before surgery too, once I found out what was about to happen, I called my sister and I'm like, oh hey, I'm at the hospital. And the first thing she says in the most judgmental voice is, what, you're pregnant? And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm not telling you anything. So I also lied to her and told her it was an ovarian cyst. And yeah, I haven't really been able to tell people about this over the years. Just kind of had to keep it to myself. And it sucks because this thing has changed my life so much. I am not the same person I used to be. Because after that, not only do you have like the natural like postpartum of not being pregnant anymore, my hormones after that rupture were just all over the place, and there were like some little complications even from surgery after. I would just have lots of random moments of just being thrown into that feeling of what it felt to be just dying all over again at random. I had no control over it, and the only person I could really lean on was my boyfriend because I couldn't tell anybody. And I don't fully blame him because that is a lot of responsibility to put on a single person, but he started to get real sick of me. I couldn't sleep by myself for the longest time, so I was over at his place, and I'm sure his roommates, love that. But I was just broken for a really long time. I was trying to put myself through therapy. I would try to take myself to the doctor whenever, stuff would spike, and it was just the worst. And my boyfriend started to resent me. And so
So just want to add in here, Gus had a totally different, at least, response to this sort of point in the video when he was explaining it in Wubby stream, that he was doing everything he could, taking her to every doctor's appointment, was always there. So she's obviously painting a different picture here. Again, just trying to play both sides here, trying to be as fair as possible. That's just trying to do what I'm doing. But anyways, let's just continue.
I tried bottling it up even more and not telling him until I was absolutely certain that I needed to go to the doctor, and I would not be able to drive myself. Like, if I try really hard to be independent, but sometimes I just can't. And those are the moments where I just couldn't. And at one point, he was talking about how hard it was having to take care of me when I would have those moments. Mind you, I never stopped him from doing anything or going anywhere. He still continued to live his life as if nothing ever happened. And there I am in the background in the shadows, just trying to pretend that I don't feel like I'm dying. It's really hard. And then he would, sometimes tell me things like, someone else would have left you by now, right? So the lack of support was really hard. And I had to put myself through therapy to try to minimize these episodes because I don't want that, and I don't want to get hooked on like Xanax or Ativan to try to like take the edge off whenever I feel it's starting to creep on, even though it did work. But I mean, no, benzos are just the worst. Never get reliant on those. It was awful. And then it would get to the point where I would ask for help, take me to urgent care, please, I can't drive myself. And he would say like, oh well, call the advice nurse and then I'll take you. And then he would insist on listening to the phone call to make sure that I wasn't exaggerating my symptoms. Or even when he would come with me a few times to the doctor, he would, sit in and, correct the doctor on things that I was saying from his point of view because he didn't want me to exaggerate my symptoms. It was a lot, but it just felt like I had to grow up even faster, and it sucked. And one of the worst things about Kaiser is you can't even sue them. If you're a Kaiser Permanente member, you automatically waive your rights to take them to court, and you have to use like their own arbitration system. So nothing ever came out of that. Don't have a fallopian tube anymore. I got dismissed multiple times by multiple doctors. I was refused when I asked for imaging. And the thing is, if we would have caught this sooner, when it comes to ectopic pregnancies, there is a shot that you can have that will terminate the pregnancy, and then you won't have a ruptured fallopian tube. But I didn't get to have that. I didn't even know what an ectopic pregnancy was. Nobody has ever taught me that. Nobody tells you how often even a miscarriage is likely to happen. Yeah, the education system really failed us. So I feel bad for the people that had the displeasure of meeting me ever since then, because I don't even know who that sad shell of a person was. I used to be like a really bright, energetic, bubbly person, and I'm starting to get bits and pieces of that back now. But for the longest time, I was just like an awkward, uncomfortable energy presence around people. There was just no way to explain why. Now, I'm not the smartest person in the world by any means. I'm actually quite bimbo. So I'm going to put some resources in the description down below about ectopic pregnancies, about miscarriages, about what to expect from pregnancy at all, or what to expect if you don't want to be pregnant and you find that you are. I'm going to include that in the description below. But I highly, highly, highly encourage you, if you ever find out that you are pregnant, try your best to make sure that whatever you decide to do is your choice. Because my biggest regret is not having one. Thanks for listening to my story.
All right, so that was her video. Again, I want to say this before we start on Gus's response, but I'm not trying to downplay her situation in any way, because obviously ectopic pregnancy, that's a huge thing. But again, I really think she painted Gus in a bad light, and he's basically been dealing with this trauma ever since. Like literally, that video came out in October, and he's still dealing with hate and a lot of just drama back and forth. And that was 6 months ago, even in his videos now. So again, it's just those, we have to cover his side now. So anyways, I have watched a little bit of this, but I haven't watched the full thing. So yeah, let's just get into it. Gus's response.
Well, if it isn't Gus the Abuser Johnson in the flesh.
Oh my goodness, not the intro I was expecting.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to lighten the mood.
It's okay, I understand the tone of the stream. Thank you so much for calling me.
Yes, thank you for talking. I don't even know where to begin, but I'm glad you were watching stream. You've been a bit of a conversation piece on the stream for a few months now. I can't seem to shake it.
I really appreciate you calling me and talking about this like this. This is just a really unique, uncomfortable situation for me that I don't usually have any experience with, but I just kind of wanted to jump on and just kind of shed a little bit more light on the situation and maybe clarify some of the things that have been out there in the last like 5-6 months or so, and just kind of go from there. So thank you so much for giving me a call, dude. This has been something that I've had to deal with every day for the last half of a year, and it's dominated a lot of my life. So I just wanted to kind of come in here and just talk a bit about some of it. So
yeah, anything you want to share? I mean, if once you get through, certain things you want to touch on, I can ask a couple questions. You can choose to answer them or not, but you have the floor. Anything you feel like you want to let everybody know, go for it.
Sure, I appreciate it. I mean, I just want to say up front too, the Sabrina situation, like what she had to go through with the ectopic pregnancy, it was real. It was painful. I was just absolutely so saddened that we had to go through this shit. And really, I just wanted to be known, especially as I talk about her and some of these situations, that I do not want to negate or discredit any of the legitimate trauma that she had to go through. I can't imagine being in her position. She and I had talked a number of times about what would happen if she did become pregnant. And we had both agreed that since we were really young and didn't really have a lot of our personal life footing in order yet, neither of us really had any money when we moved out here. We both agreed that it was not... we couldn't give a good life to a child at that time. So we had agreed that, if a pregnancy did occur, that we would seek termination. I just funded the podcast with Eddie and was trying to deliver that on time and everything. And there was just a lot going on, and neither of us had prepared for this. It was really terrifying. We started going to doctor's visits and Planned Parenthood together to try to look at our next options. And it really worried me right away that Sabrina began to express a change of her mind in regards to what we would do with the kid. And, she was kind of in between jobs and stuff at the time, and she just kind of fully changed her mind on that. And I didn't deal with that in a very mature way. I was really fearful. I just told her I wasn't ready for this, and I just expressed that with her at the time. On the day that a lot of people seem to...
So I'm very glad that he brought up that point, is that she, went back on the promise of if she was getting pregnant, then she would get an abortion. She went back on that and actually was more or less deciding like, hey, maybe I do want this kid. And Gus is able to acknowledge that, but he's also able to acknowledge his immaturity at the time, which she did not. She basically was giving all the credit to herself and no credit to him, but he is giving credit to both sides. So I really like, at least from what I've seen in this conversation, because I have seen part of it, is that he is not just charitable, but overly charitable in the situation, where I feel he gives too much credit to her in the situations that she wronged him. But anyways, it could just be sort of a result of they were in a relationship for 3 to 4 years. So again, if you're in a relationship with 3 to 4 years with someone and it was a good relationship, you might actually give them a lot more credit in certain situations where they might not deserve. But anyways, let's just get back to it.
I've been referencing in the comments of various things and stuff in the last few months. I had made a podcast obligation with a guest to film that evening. We had just started the podcast and gotten it off the ground, and I just felt a lot of pressure to deliver to the people that had crowdfunded that and to deliver to Eddie. And this is me taking full responsibility for that decision. It's not Eddie or anybody else, that caused that. I just chose to stick behind and honor that obligation. She told me that she was going to the hospital, and I told her I would join her as soon as I was done. At that time, neither of us still knew that it was an ectopic pregnancy. We had no idea the emergency situation that was in effect. That was neither of us. I joined her at the hospital that evening, and we both got the diagnosis that it was ectopic and it had to be removed right away. And I stayed with her during the surgery and took her home after. But that was that order of events as it happened.
One thing that kept getting brought up tonight, and that I've seen brought up quite a bit, is the pressure that we really only know the side that she put out. But there was a lot of implied pressure to the point where a lot of people called abuse of the abortion thing. A lot of people said they're taking what she said and they're expanding on it, that like you weren't open to conversation. There was stonewalling. Do you want to elaborate on that at all? Is that how it went? Do you view things differently? Is there more that we could know about that situation that you think would help clarify? Or was it as accurate as she explained?
I mean, I totally understand you asking. I can't speak too much to the minutia of conversations that I had, 4 years ago, but we did talk about this a lot. I didn't say that we shouldn't talk about it, but at the same time, I recognized that some of the language that I was using was not the most conducive to a very team-oriented approach of like, what do we do here? I was just really afraid what to do, and we just weren't ready for the situation. And I think that sometimes I just said some stupid stuff. After we broke up,
Again, this is why I really like Gus in this conversation. He, again, is being very charitable to the situation and acknowledges his shortcomings, but also acknowledges, the role she played and what she was, going through at the time. Obviously, they were both younger, and he was able to acknowledge his immaturity, and he was able to acknowledge also her, having different thoughts about the pregnancy. And again, that's when I say like he's being so charitable, because she was being, absolutely not charitable at all. I don't think she said one positive thing about Gus in her entire video. And we're only 6 minutes into this video, and he has said multiple things that, he's able to play both sides, where he's able to acknowledge his problems and able to acknowledge her problems, which again, I just think is so, I guess, important in these kind of conversations when we're accessing certain situations. So it's just like being able to acknowledge your own faults and not just able to play the blood sport of like, oh, it was all their fault, none of mine, is, very grown up of him, obviously.
I think a lot of people don't really realize this. This situation happened before her video came out. It had happened about 3 years prior. I think already there are a lot of folks that maybe thought that this had happened really recently. It happened about 3 years prior, and we had stayed together for the 3 years after that. And during this time, we talked about the situation a lot. I just want to touch a little bit more on kind of the process after the ectopic surgery happened, if that's all right.
Yeah, please.
In the months and the year that followed the surgery, she and I went to so many doctor's appointments together, saw dozens of specialists, and went to just countless emergency rooms and urgent cares. Our lives day to day were pretty heavily dictated by this situation. It was not uncommon for many of the days a week to have some semblance of an episode with Sabrina occurring. A lot of the times it would manifest in it appeared like she was having a panic attack. I really don't want to say that to discredit anything that she was going to. 95% of the time, she would be having trouble communicating and would be hyperventilating. Sometimes I would get frantic phone calls while she was driving and afraid that she might pass out, or she would be waking me up in the middle of the night and insisting that, we should go to the emergency room or the urgent care. And it was not uncommon for us to have a few days in a row where both of us were getting just a couple hours of sleep at night at best. It was pretty incessant for a while, and it was so scary and confusing. I honestly, I absolutely tried my best. I completely know that I could have done better. I really tried my best during that time, and it was really a period of months where we were both absolutely exhausted. We were clearly suffering, and her so much more than me from a physical and healing standpoint. I'm not trying to.
So again, he's playing both sides here. While he acknowledges he didn't do the best, but he also was able to acknowledge that he brought her to the urgent care, hospital, ER, whatever, many times throughout the week. And notice if you go back to her video and watch it, she said, oh, he only, took me to the urgent care or whatever, like a few times, like a very few times. So again, very important to recognize that these stories that they're telling, Gus is telling his side and she's telling her side, he's being very charitable. He's giving credit to both sides. He's also acknowledging the problems on both sides, while she is not doing any of that and only giving all the credit to herself and not giving any credit to him, and only acknowledging his problems that he was presenting at that time. And he's able to acknowledge those, but also give her credit as well. So again, it's just, that's why I'm a lot more trusting of Gus in that way, because if you're able to be that charitable, like in multiple situations with the conversation, it seems like you're coming at it from a good faith standpoint. And I don't think she was coming at it from good faith. I think she was coming at it more of a malicious intent of, hey, because the timeline here, she broke up, or they broke up, and then the video came out immediately afterwards. It seemed like she kind of came at it from a manipulation standpoint and also a malicious standpoint.
To equate that one dang bit, but it seemed like nothing was being figured out and nothing could be done for quite some time. The thing is, during this time that lasted for months, there were just times where I was so exhausted, I got frustrated at the problem, at the situation. It seemed like it wasn't getting better, and sometimes I said some stupid, flippant, short things. I don't know. I've since apologized for these things. It's embarrassing. These weren't things that I woke up in the morning and just said to her. This was born out of a constant state of fear and exhaustion and frustration, and that does not make them okay. I mean, the last year of our relationship especially, it was just, we had gotten to the point where we were just hardly dating. We were just pretty much roommates at that point. We didn't spend a lot of free time together. There just was no really kind of like excitement or drive, and I'm not pinning that on either of us. Just you understand, when you get into a relationship with somebody, after 4 years goes by, you kind of play ping pong with who's kind of trying more at a certain time to keep it alive, and it'd been clear for a long time that it was a dead relationship. We had sought professional help. We talked to a couples counselor that she had found on the internet, and we booked a few sessions with her. And
I wanted to ask you about that because that's a large point in a lot of your naysayers, that because it was all very public, unfortunately, on Twitter, but you posted, or you said in a video that you went to therapy with her. She denied it on Twitter. You posted receipts. She then outed what she felt the therapy was about and how it was irrelevant. And then I don't believe you responded to that. Is that something you want to touch on? Because a lot of people, don't know what to, I'm one of those people, right? I'm hearing two sides, and I want to hear more.
Yeah, totally. I mean, to speak to that just up front too, she had found somebody online who did couples counseling sessions. And she brought that person to me and the idea of going to these shared sessions together, and we attended a handful of them together and spoke at length for many hours about our relationship. I also talked to this counselor personally, just in terms of an individual stuff. And that is just what happened. A lot of this stuff took place in this final year here in 2021. We got to the end of the year, and it just was so clear that we tried everything we need to break up, and we broke up, this last fall. And I thought for a while, that it was going to be not a good thing necessarily, because breakups suck, and especially when you're 4 years with somebody is really difficult. It seemed like it was going to be amicable for a while. We were really polite texting each other during the breakup when we were coordinating her coming back over to the house to get some of her stuff and move out. I had offered to watch the dog for her when she was out of town, and it was pretty shortly after we did privately break up that I was watching the dog one weekend, and she came back to get some stuff from my house and to get the dog, and she surprised me because she came back in and she had brought me some gifts and said that she wanted to get back together with me, that she was sorry that it didn't work out and she didn't want to give up, and she said she wanted to come back into my life. And I just looked at all the effort that we had put in the last year, and I just thought that we had really given it as much of a try as we possibly could. And I just said, I'm sorry, I'm not there right now. I don't think it's a good idea. And this was before I put out the public statement at all on Twitter in the few days after, since after we broke up. And I was texting her that morning saying, I want you to weigh in on what we have to say. I don't want to put out anything without checking in with you. I understand that we're both public individuals, and I just don't want anybody's interpretations of us to fall on the other side. Let's work on the statement together. She came back in and she said that evening that she wanted to get back together. I said I wasn't ready to do that. And she screamed at me and said, you put out whatever you want, but don't say it was mutual. That's a lie. And she slammed the door and left my house. And then really shortly afterwards, the this video came out that talked about the worst time in both of our lives. And
so again, that's why I basically said like earlier that I feel her video was made out of manipulation, emotional manipulation, and also malicious intent. That she tried to get back together with him, she didn't get her way, so therefore she made this video. In my opinion, that's where the malicious and emotional manipulation she used in the video really spawned. And, you know, again, he in this conversation is coming at it with such good faith, and her in her video was just straight malicious. Like, there's really no way to put it. So that's why I said that earlier, and that's why it connects with this story here.
I just wasn't expecting it, and it left me so sad because she had to go through legitimate trauma, and I just do not, for 1 second, I do not want to undermine that. I think that, unfortunately, it's just so unfortunate how this came out, because this could have been such an amazing opportunity for us to both talk together about the shortcomings and the mistakes and the things that we learned during this time together. There was never any interest expressed in doing that during our time together. And unfortunately, right after the breakup, she took to doing a lot of the things that I think a lot of folks have seen post her video coming out. I just really, like, especially, I just want to interject again. I am not trying to discredit her one single bit. Like, I was so intimately involved in the being around the trauma at the time. And I know the hurt that that she was going through. And this was just so absolutely personal. And I never wanted to deal with this issue in this regard. I just didn't want it to happen like this. I'm sorry. I usually don't speak about anything like this. This is kind of an uncomfortable and embarrassing thing to talk about. She took to Twitter the same day that the video came out, and she was liking tweets and retweeting things from random users that I just feel like really unfairly mischaracterized me during what happened in that situation. And it was beyond stuff like that too. You know, she took to creating memes about me and the situation and continued to post about this. And unfortunately, it didn't just stop from a public front. She took to a lot of my friends and people that I do business with that aren't publicly personalities as well, and tried to get them to stop working with me. Tried to cut off connections. And I know this because in the last half of a year, I've had a number of these people come to me personally and just say that she made them feel extraordinarily uncomfortable by the kind of conversations that she had with them following this video. I felt so embarrassed for myself and for my friends. And I have tried to maintain a position as this stuff has been happening that it is, you know, I think we all understand people that are public personalities like this, like how valuable people's reputations are and their connections with people personally and professionally. And I just have not wanted to do or say anything that would take opportunities away from her or anybody else involved around me. You know, there were a couple times that I did try to just add more clarification. And really one of the only times was after I put out my apology video. You know, 24 hours went by, and she tweeted out, like, never been to a day of couples therapy in my life. And I totally understand the validity in the semantics of, you know, therapy versus counseling. Again, this is another area I was not very intimately involved in and familiar with. So if it was a misclassification error, like, I totally understand that, but I think it's a little bit more of a binary approach to it to just say, you know, I've never been to a day of this in my life. On that situation, I talked to a couple of people close to me. I said, what can I do here? You know, at this point, it feels like this is not, you know, when I put out my apology video, it was over 3 months past the time that she put out her video. And I just said, I don't know what to do here. I just feel like I need to defend myself here. There were a lot of digs at my character and my decisions. And I said, I just really feel the need to defend myself. Again, I was not trying to discredit any of her trauma regarding this medical situation. I was like, you know, hey, we did do these things, and this was a person that she had chosen and she had brought forward to us. You know, this was her pick. And so I shared the receipts of that online. I just said, I'm really confused why she is claiming that we never did this. You know, here are a few of the receipts I have in my inbox because I paid for these as well. So I had the documentation of some of these sessions. And then right away, she tweeted out trying to discredit the counselor, you know, calling her just like a TikTok therapist or something. And then she tried to share intimate details of completely mischaracterized and taken out of context, like things that we talked about during these sessions. She said that if anybody saw the tweet, it was pretty inflammatory and disgusting. She took that down immediately, and then an hour or so after that, she tweeted out that she was not going to continue talking about this, and that she never even named me, and it was only to share her story. And I mean, I don't know. I think you could pretty clearly see a contradiction in intention between those two things within the span of a day or a few hours here. You know, I think I'm at the point now where I don't want to have problems with anybody. It was not my goal when I started doing this work 7 years ago to be getting into arguments and problems with people. You know, maybe it's more the Midwest in me, but I'm accustomed to dealing with problems personally and privately between the person that is involved and the respective friends and families. I was not prepared to deal with this stuff. I know that some people have been critical of my return.
It's also something I wanted to touch on too. It's throughout this entire drama situation with him that has lasted for months now, is that she has tried to feed off of it time and time again, you know, making this video or making the video she did 6 months ago, and then, you know, using sort of manipulation tactics and this sort of emotional manipulation with these long pauses and crying and stuff, and also taking to Twitter and tweeting, you know, all sorts of things, liking certain tweets, making certain memes. Again, it seems like she was really feeding off of this, while Gus did not do any of that. He was trying to explain the situation in full and also be very charitable to her in the situation. And again, that doesn't make for good clicks when it comes to internet drama. What makes good clicks is, you know, drama in the sense of this person did everything wrong, I'm 100% in the right, I'm the victim, I was the victim all along, you know, you have to, you know, like my video and have to stand behind me, and if you're not, you're, you know, whatever, this and that. So at least that's what I feel here in this situation. He does not want this drama, and she does want this drama, because why else would you make a video on YouTube explaining your pregnancy, but then also including your boyfriend in the video, and then feeding off of this drama while not, you know, throwing water on the flame immediately, which she could have done.
Saying that I should have done something or that I shouldn't have done something. And I just want to say, like, I'm really doing the best here. It is a situation that I felt had been properly handled and apologized for and dealt with in a private fashion. And I just want to assert that nothing that I have done during the few months since her video was ever intended to try to hit back at her or have any sort of like commentary response. I just want to acknowledge something too that I've seen some folks kind of lambast in the months since I've done this. I tried, after a few months hiatus, coming back with a sketch. I did a sketch called The Kid in Gym Class Who Always Needed an Ice Pack. Mm-hmm. This is an idea that I'd had a long time before any of this stuff happened. I filmed it with a friend and I showed it to a couple people close to me, and I and everyone else just thought it was nothing other than just trying to get back in, you know, into the swing of stuff here. I totally recognize how fucking stupid it was to not comb through every possible thought that people might have of me during this time. I had so many people come out and say, like, this is Gus clearly trying to take a shot at Sabrina and continue to undermine her.
Yeah, this is where I wanted to add in the over charitability example, is that, you know, he was even so thoughtful in the videos he put out that he was even thinking, you know, how can certain people online viewing this could somehow interpret this into me hating my ex-girlfriend, or, you know, disliking her situation, or downplaying or discrediting it in any way. And it was like, people can perceive anything you put out. You could, you know, like literally put out a video of you saving cats from trees, and somehow people will interpret that in a negative way. Again, people are going to come at videos with biases, like I'm coming at this video with a bias, of course. And, you know, again, whatever content people put out, there's going to be someone on this planet that's going to interpret it in this way that you did not foresee, because again, everyone interprets it differently. And, you know, there's 8 billion of us on the planet. So the fact that he was so like thoughtful even at that time, the content he put out, and he was so charitable in that way of, he's like, you know, when he sees people interpreting it in this certain way, then he's like, oh no, I shouldn't have done that. And it's just like, you know, he could never even be a content creator anymore if he kept thinking like that, and this drama kept perpetuating itself.
Medical trauma. I just want to say, like, that was never ever my intention. Boy, don't you think I feel like a complete moron for not making that connection at all. It just was never ever my intention. I just felt foolish about that, and it got to a point where I thought that if I took it down, people would take that as an admission of guilt, like, I tried to do that, you got me. So I just ultimately left it up. Really, nothing prepares you for a situation like this where you suddenly have to defend to millions of people your reputation, your intentions, when one person right after a breakup really just smears you like this. It's terrifying, it's confusing. And I certainly did some dumb stuff, but all I can say is I completely promised that I never intended to do anything to try to hit back at or undermine her experience or this situation.
I do have questions if you want to answer them. You don't have to. I could ask them and you can see if you feel like it.
Okay.
Your call.
I could take some questions.
Okay. This one might be rough, but a lot of us from the sidelines were really confused about what happened between you and Eddie. We got two big responses from him that were confusing and vague, and he painted himself, he was fully on Sabrina's side, okay, but he also painted himself as a victim, and then he kept saying, you know, don't ask me about it, I don't want to be involved, but I was fucked too. I mean, you don't need to share personal, intimate details, but is there anything you want people to know about that?
I totally understand the question. I don't want to make Eddie's life more difficult one single bit. I'm sure this will probably be a disappointing answer to some. I don't want to be misrepresentative of mine and Eddie's current relationship. You know, we don't speak. I don't want to drag anybody else into this. And I think if there are people that are out there that are fans of either my work or his or our collective work completely, people that really give a shit about us don't really want to see us be fighting or say disrespectful things to each other. So I'm just not going to do that. I've been really happy to see all of his successes lately. I hope that those continue. But I think that's as much as I want to talk about in regards to him. So thank you for asking.
Of course, and I appreciate the answer. Before I let you go, that you covered damn near everything. But is there anything else you want to say? Anything you want my chat to know? I can imagine this is the part that will get clipped. Any final words you have to say to people who agree, who disagree, who are just now tuning in?
I've been living in about half of a year here of being really afraid of what to do and uncertain of where I stand with a lot of people. And I just want people to know that, like, I am not trying to discredit anybody or start any problems with people. I hate drama. I don't like doing that. I just have no interest in a public back and forth with anybody about this situation. You know, like, honestly, I'm fearful that even this appearance today will create more problems for myself. I just don't. In the last half of a year, it has been really difficult in a lot of areas, and it has absolutely eroded my mental health significantly. I'm finally getting to a place in my personal life where a lot of this has hopefully subsided and been put to bed, but it's really difficult as I continue to kind of put myself out there on my own platforms and try to do work with others on their platforms. It's very hurtful, embarrassing, and difficult to see still a good number of people out there with a completely, in my eyes, just fully misrepresentative idea of what happened between me and this person, as well as their intentions.
I think you said it well, and I think that you even coming on here in light of, or with all the shit storm that comes anytime you make any sort of appearance, I think it was really brave, and I think it was, you shared a lot of insight on what happened, and I think we all appreciate that. So thank you.
I'll try to keep this super succinct. Can I just end on one final thought here really quick?
You have the final word, brother.
I just want to say that I want to continue to be a mouthpiece for good, and I really want to be just a force for good, and I want to stand up for people, and none of that stuff has changed. That's what I've been trying to be about for years. You know, it is a very real thing for women to be disproportionately ignored and misdiagnosed and disrespected by many people in the medical field. That is a real reality. That is something that I had to be intimately involved with to see firsthand. I want to continue to step up and stand up for people and raise awareness in these areas. I'm embarrassed that I wasn't always the best person when it happened in my life, and I just want more people to be aware of stuff like that. And I just thank you, Wubby, and thank you, folks, and please don't believe everything that you read on the internet, and be good to people in that order. I guess. I don't know.
All right, fair enough. Thank you, Gus. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate you, man. Have a good one. Take it easy.
Thanks, Wubby. Have a nice night, everybody.
Bye, dude.
So that was the Gus Johnson situation breakdown. I hope I did a relatively good job of sharing my thoughts of this situation. So obviously I think this, his kind of interview with Wubby on his stream was a really good long form interview where he was able to share all of his thoughts and answer, basically every question he needed to with a 6-month retrospect of the situation. And also I think I did a relatively good job of kind of showing that in her video that the ectopic pregnancy was really more so about the doctors in the situation, the medical staff, and less about Gus's faults in, the situation that went down. Especially because, again, they were young and, apparently finances and money were an issue, which, is important to remember in that situation. But I feel that Gus did a much better job of being overly charitable. He's not just charitable. I think he was overly charitable, again, with his final statement and like everything he said in this, where he would stop and say like, I'm not trying to discredit her. And he would say that multiple times. Again, that is something necessary for you to say, that, hey, I'm not trying to discredit her, but saying it as many times as he did, and also like bringing up her situation and how traumatic it was and how much trauma she, had to go through, it was him being very overly charitable in the situation. It's something you might need to say once or twice, and he said it probably like 5 or 6 times. Again, it's not a bad thing to be overly charitable. It's just something to contrast against her video, which was not charitable to him at all. But anyways, that's about it for this video. I'm not trying to be a drama channel podcast or whatever, but I just thought this kind of drama or situation, I would say, was interesting when it started, and I was actually going to make a video about it like on episode 2 or 3 of the podcast, but just never got around to doing it. And then Gus went on Wubby's stream and a video was made. So that was this week's podcast. Hope everyone enjoyed, and until next time, see ya.